The cafeteria went dead silent. Not the kind of quiet that happens when someone drops a tray. This was different. This was the kind of silence that creeps into your bones, the kind that makes your heart beat a little faster because you know something just shifted in the room. 200 active duty service members, mid-conversation, mid-bite, all frozen in place. Forks hovered in the air, eyes locked on one table in the corner. And at the center of it all stood a woman in uniform, calm as still water, staring down one of the most decorated Navy SEALs on base that he hadn't meant it as an insult. At least, that's what he'd tell himself later. It was supposed to be a joke, the kind of ribbing that happens in military mess halls every single day. He'd been holding court with his team, war stories flying, laughter echoing off the walls, when she walked past their table carrying a plain tray of food. She wasn't loud. She wasn't trying to be noticed. But something about her presence made him look twice. Maybe it was the way she moved, measured and deliberate, like every step had a purpose. Maybe it was the quiet authority she carried without saying a word. Or maybe, deep down, it was insecurity dressed up as confidence. Either way, he decided to make her the punchline. He leaned back in his chair, grinned at his buddies, and called out loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. "Hey, ma'am, quick question. What's your rank? You lost or something?" His team chuckled. A few nearby tables glanced over. He was used to being the alpha, the guy everyone looked up to. But what happened next, he wasn't prepared for. She stopped. Slowly, she turned to face him. No anger in her eyes. No embarrassment. Just a calm, unshakable certainty that made the air in the room feel heavier. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She took 2 steps toward his table, and the entire cafeteria seemed to hold its breath. Then, in a tone so steady it could cut through steel, she said 4 words, "I'm your commanding officer." The room didn't just go quiet, it collapsed into itself. You could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. You could hear someone's boot scuff against the tile floor. The SEAL's grin vanished like smoke. His teammates, the ones who'd been laughing seconds before, suddenly found their meals very interesting. Because in that moment, everyone realized what he'd just done. This wasn't some random officer passing through. This was Captain Elena Reyes, one of the highest-ranking women in Naval Special Warfare Command, a combat veteran with 3 tours under her belt, and a Bronze Star that she never talked about because the people who were there would never forget. The SEAL shot to his feet, so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Ma'am, but she raised a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "At ease," she said quietly. She didn't need to humiliate him. She didn't need to make an example out of him. The room had already done that. But what she did next is what separated her from every other officer who might have pulled rank and walked away. She stepped closer, lowered her voice so only his table could hear, and said, "I don't need your respect because of these bars on my collar. I need your respect because I've earned it in the same mud, the same blood, and the same missions you have. And so has every single person in this room, regardless of rank or gender. Remember that." Then she picked up her tray and walked to an empty table in the back, alone. But she wasn't alone for long. One by one, service members started standing up. A Marine sergeant grabbed his tray and sat across from her. Then a Navy corpsman. Then an Air Force lieutenant. Then a young enlisted soldier who looked like he'd just found his hero. Within minutes, her table was full, surrounded by people who understood what she represented. Not just authority, but integrity. The SEAL stayed at his table, staring down at his food, drowning in the weight of his own words. His teammates didn't say anything. They didn't have to. Later that evening, after the dinner rush had cleared and the cafeteria had emptied out, he found her outside near the training yard. She was sitting on a bench, boots unlaced, staring up at the sky like she was a million miles away. He approached slowly, hesitant, humility finally catching up with arrogance. "Ma'am," he said quietly. She glanced at him, then nodded toward the bench. He sat. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, "I was out of line. I disrespected you, and I disrespected myself. I'm sorry." She nodded slowly. Apology accepted. He exhaled, but she wasn't done. "You know what the hardest part of my job is?" she asked. He shook his head. "It's not the missions. It's not the politics. It's walking into rooms where people have already decided I don't belong, and proving them wrong, over and over, until I'm too tired to care anymore." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes he hadn't expected: exhaustion. Not physical, but the kind that comes from carrying a weight no one else can see. "You're a good operator," she continued. "I've read your file. You've saved lives. You've done things most people can't even imagine. But none of that gives you the right to make someone feel small just so you can feel big." He nodded, throat tight. "I'll do better, ma'am." She stood, laced up her boots, and rested a hand briefly on his shoulder. "I know you will." Then she walked back toward the barracks, her silhouette disappearing into the dim evening light. The SEAL sat there for a long time after she left, replaying the day in his mind. He thought about all the times he'd judged someone before knowing their story. He thought about the warriors he'd served with who didn't wear their scars on the outside. And he thought about the quiet, unshakable strength it takes to walk into a room full of doubt and come out with your head still high. The next morning, when Captain Reyes walked into the cafeteria, something was different. The SEAL was already there, standing at attention by his table. When she passed, he nodded, not out of obligation, but out of respect. Real respect. She returned the nod, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. And in that moment, the entire room understood something that no rank or medal could ever teach. True authority isn't demanded. It's earned. One quiet, powerful moment at a time.